Welcome to season 2 of the Mind Wealth podcast. We took a hiatus and now we are back with a ton of things to talk about. We have a humongous list of a whole bunch of different topics that we're going to try and get to here over the coming months, and we're excited to discuss these things to you and hopefully help you think differently about money. So today's topic today is in our new studio here. We're going to be recording this, and we really want to start off with something that has been happening recently. You know, this is January of 2021, and you look back even just in the last month, things to do with cryptocurrencies have been pretty crazy. There's been a lot of things happening.
Stock market's at an all-time high.
And the stock market is super high, and there's a lot of things happening. So we wanted to discuss what all that means and give some different perspectives. The three of us have different perspectives about all of this in our kind of different understandings of crypto. Now, I have a computer science background and I have a mathematics background. So there's a whole bunch of the technical side of the blockchain and all that stuff that I understand, and I can understand the applications of it all. But even if we just talk kind of about just the cryptocurrencies for today, the actual like Bitcoin and Ethereum, I guess, are ones that we could just kind of restrict ourselves to, because there are so many more other directions and other applications of the technology. And we should just talk about crypto first. So why don't we just start with Anthony talking a little bit about Bitcoin and or Ethereum. What do you think about it?
They're both very interesting. To me, the way that they're traded is more interesting because of the distributed ledger technology and the next version of that that's coming out that I just watched a video on yesterday called Hedera Hashgraph, which is it's the same security and decentralized way of trading, but it also it allows for a ton more transactions to happen, like an order of magnitude more compared to blockchain technology, where you could only do, I think, one brick every 10 minutes, and there's only a certain amount of trades per brick that it can be added to the ledger. So this changes everything. They've finally just opened it up to the public and are going to be coming out with this. So it's gonna change the way we think about and trade and do stuff like that with cryptocurrencies. It's gonna literally change the landscape of how we see even a lot of apps that come out, a lot of ways that the internet looks to us is going to be different from this platform. It's going to change our perspective and see it from a whole different side. And for myself, like, Bitcoin's at like $30-some thousand, I think, US, which is just crazy high. And I think having at least 10% of my investments in cryptos is going to be a really good thing. Even though I'm not there yet, I want to start transitioning over to that so that I have some security, because I know it's inevitable that crypto will be taking over a huge portion of the way we think about currency and the way we think about exchange between people without having a bank involved, without having the government involved. And those are all really important things when it comes to free trade and free people and a free economy. And that's what I am super excited about.
So do you think that the government's going to want to get in on this and be able to monitor these kinds of things for people to be able to move money around so that they can get their income tax off of it?
They're going to try, and it's extremely important that we fight that every single tooth and nail, because as soon as that is in play, then it's no longer decentralized, and there is some middleman form that has to keep track of everything, and then it cannot be trustworthy after that. So it's important to honestly get in now before it is, and start to understand it, and start to understand the new technology coming out that we can use day to day in our businesses, whatever else that doesn't have as much control over our money. So the more you have control of your money, or the more I have control of my money, the safer my money is, or my currency is. I don't like to call it money, but currency.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important, is if we can make that last as long as possible, where there is no control from some big entity that maybe might not have my best interest at heart, then the best way to do that is to I mean, crypto's basically the only space other than free trade between like actual physical trade, like I buy something off of you and doing that way, right? But then you still have currency in your hand that you have to go take to a bank, or you can go buy something for somebody else. But either way, you're still going to go, if you buy something from a store, you're going to pay tax on it, and the government will get their piece. So there's going to be hopefully a line that we can find and both sides can balance on. But obviously they're just going to want to make it illegal to do anything with cryptos and stuff, because they're in a position where they're stuck, because this can't be controlled easily.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a huge thing for them. That's a big thing that they're going to really want to try and figure out as soon as possible, which there's tons of banks and stuff trying to come out with their own cryptos now too, right? So banks, Visa, MasterCard, they're all trying to come out with their own cryptos to get to start to transition over the masses to be comfortable with Bitcoin, and then also so that they can start to gain some control back by implementing their own coins or whatever you want to call them. They're all different tokens and different things like that. So
well, I know like even it was a couple of years ago, and I haven't looked into it recently, but Facebook wanted to have their own cryptocurrency that was their own currency for on their platform, and so that people could, pay for games and pay for different things through Facebook and use their own currency instead of using
like full on own currency.
Yeah, they're
that's
full on
like
own currency.
Basically making Facebook a country.
Yeah,
and having their own way to print money or figure out how that it's valued and control the value of it. It's scary, absolutely scary. I watched a video on that when they unveiled it.
Yeah,
and it's frightening.
Yeah, because like everyone's saying right now, they're a private company, they can do what they want, but at the same time, that's what's really scary about it. Is like literally all they need to do right now is send you an email and say, hey, just so you know, we're changing our terms of agreement and now it is this, and they can just change it. And if you don't want to agree with it, then you have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So you either stay and agree with it or you leave. And so like that's create an incredible amount of power. So if you think about putting any of your money into a system like that, and then all of a sudden they just decide they want to change their rules, they can do that. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty crazy to think about that, and to think about that level of control that they would have. So obviously we're against that level of control. We want to have as much control for ourselves as we possibly can. Sounds like crypto can really do that for us. These different currencies that we can put our money into, it can do that. It sounds like it can, but at the same time, it's still kind of risky. Alan and I were talking about this the other day. This is part of his reservation, so I'll let Alan talk about it in a minute here. But currently, let's say someone has $200 million worth of Bitcoin, and if they decide to sell off a huge portion of it, that's going to trigger a whole bunch of other people to sell off a whole bunch of it, and literally within a day, the value of a Bitcoin could just totally plummet. It could go down 30%. It could be something ridiculous, and that's because there's no, like in the regular stock market, there's these circuit breakers that stop the trading from happening, so that all of these, automatic rules that people have set up to sell off if something drops a certain value, like none of that is available in any of the Bitcoin stuff. And so someone could just sell off a ton of Bitcoin, force the price of Bitcoin to plummet like crazy, and then just buy it all again at the bottom. And that's totally manipulating the market. That's totally manipulating the value. And that would totally screw over a ton of people. It could be very detrimental. So there's no control over that like there is on the stock market. So that's one of the things where it's a little bit dicey still to think about putting your money, putting your wealth into something like that.
That's why it's important for a lot more of the masses to get into it, so that once those sales happen, they can't buy back as much because a lot more people are coming into it, right? Like, I'm sure that they'll still be able to manipulate a bit, but the circuit breaker, remember, from that is implemented now, that just happened the last year and a half or whatever, that they finally implemented, or like they were able to use it. That was implemented after 2008 because there wasn't something like that implemented, which just literally crash the stock market, and there was no breaker to pull and say, hey, trading stop for 2 hours, or whatever it is, right?
2 hours, a day or whatever,
and it'll kick back in tomorrow at 4 p.m. or something like that, whatever it is, 4 a.m. So keep in mind that the whole stock market can be manipulated the same way, right? It's
just, it would have to be all of the different crypto exchanges would then have to implement that kind of a thing, because there's multiple exchanges that are all out there, right? So what do you think about crypto there, Alan?
Well, as a prudent financial advisor, I've always got the questions. I'm always suspicious of any new product that comes down the line, because at the end of the day, there's going to be some casualties. People are going to learn through experience about the pros and cons of anything, no matter what it is. And I've seen a few come through my own office, opportunities, different types of investments that we've been exposed to, that I'm just waited to see how they'd pan out, because I wasn't settled, and I had some reservations. So I waited, and sure enough, 2 years down the road, they backfired and they didn't work out. And I'm like, oh man, I'm sure glad I didn't get into that. So I still have these same reservations regarding crypto, because it's first of all, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the technical side of it, and these guys that are mining, that are creating a value to create these things in the first place. That's, to me, it's like, well, so what's the product? Like, what is a value that they're creating here? Because most of us, we provide a product or a service in trade for compensation. Somebody wants to buy what I've got to sell, and that's how we all make a living, right? We trade services, or we're buying and selling products. So what's the product with crypto? What's the product? Like, it's not really something you can use. It's another form of currency. It's like buying some currency from another country. Like, let's say you're going to stock up on the Mexican peso. For some point down the road, when the exchange rate is favorable, you'll unload it and go on holiday down there. So I have limited potential use of crypto currently, because I have fears about how quickly it could lose value or change value, totally out of my control. So one of the questions I had, and we've actually met with a few people who were involved in it, and the questions that we had were, well, how do you know how much is too much to pay? $40,000 per Bitcoin, for example. Does that not seem excessively high priced at this point? Is this the time to be buying? And is that the price we should be paying for crypto, whatever type you're buying? The price always in investing and grocery shopping, we use the same strategy. We talk about we don't want to buy high and sell low, but that's what we end up doing, it seems, when we look at crypto at $40,000 a pop, or any portion of it that you would purchase. That seems to be awfully high price. So the potential of it going down is a whole lot higher than it going up, in my view, at this stage of the game. So what do? We wait for a sale before we start entering the market, much the same as we would for anything else. I relate it back to something as simple as shopping for groceries. And I remember going to Costco and seeing the chicken wings on for $11, those buffalo wings or those barbecue wings in a bag, they're frozen. and they were like 11, 12 bucks. And it's like, that's a pretty reasonable price. So I would buy 2 bags. But a month later you go back and you want to buy some more chicken wings to watch the hockey game with, and they're 17 bucks a bag, and you knew what you paid the last time. And it's like, I don't think I'm going to buy any chicken wings this month. Well, why don't we use the same philosophy or strategy? And it's common sense in how we purchase our investments, or purchase our real estate, or purchase anything for that matter. Gold, for example, where's all the attention on gold now? It's pushing $2,400 an ounce Canadian. Mm-hmm. Well, where was everybody when it was 900 or 250 or 50? No,
everybody's all afraid they're afraid to buy in when it's low because they think it's going to crash further.
Yeah, well, and you go back.
It's the same with Bitcoin.
You go back to Bitcoin.
It was on what, 16,000?
It was like 19,000 back December, December 15th or something like that. It was about $19,000, and even then you would have thought to yourself like, "Geez, $19,000 for one Bitcoin." Like, obviously you're not buying. You don't buy one Bitcoin. You can buy a small fraction of it. So you put in whatever money you can on it. But to say that the value of a Bitcoin is 19,000 then was like, oh shit, like that's a lot. And then now all of a sudden looking at where it is right now and it's at 30,000, again, you're still like, holy, but what if, what's all the what ifs? What if it goes to 100,000? Well, buying it right now at 30 would be a super good idea. But again, like, who knows? You don't know you can't predict. And there's a lot of people that are trying to predict, and they are saying that there's going to be all these different growth cycles on it. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, because you're talking about the actual value of it, or the tangibleness of it, mm-hmm. Because conceptually, Anthony's phone's going off. Conceptually, Bitcoin is a digital ones and zeros, and the Canadian dollar is mostly ones and zeros. It is the same idea, because the amount of paper money that exists in Canada, Canadian dollars, is nowhere near the amount of actual dollars that are in the computer systems amongst all the banks. So the majority of the Canadian dollar is not tangible at all.
And why is that?
Well, yeah, because it's impossible for them to do that. They've done this fractional banking. They've done all these different things where they're able to lend more than they actually have, and all that stuff.
There's no limit.
There's no limit to that. And that's part of the thing that I wanted to mention. And this is going to be another episode that we're going to talk about. But the government can just make more. They can just make more Canadian dollars. There is an unlimited amount of dollars that they can make, and with the stroke of the pen, they can just create it. Whereas in Bitcoin, there is a maximum amount that will be created.
This is what gives it its value.
So in some ways, it's better than other currencies, because there's those other currencies, those currencies of a country, they can just keep making more. There's no theoretical limit to what they can do, whereas there is for Bitcoin. So then eventually, once all the Bitcoin has been created, then there will be no more, and then the value of each small fraction of a Bitcoin could increase or decrease based on what people say the value of it is. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to think about, and also to think about what the value of a Bitcoin could be when you start to compare it to the currency of a country.
Well, when do people start looking at Bitcoin and gold and these types of things as a place to invest? Quite often, that's where the glitter is. This is what the attraction is a high return on our investment.
Yeah.
Or when they lose confidence in their currency.
Yeah.
That's true. However, anything that you build starts on a foundation. Like anything, whether you're building a house or whether you're building a portfolio, there's a foundation, and you start for stability. So you start with addressing the foundational things first. Debt management. Debt management and getting your cash flow under control is more important than making 40% returns on a small amount of money that you're willing to risk losing and gamble.
Yeah.
What about protection over your family? What about assuring a consistent, steady income stream to fund your lifestyle and fund your investments and fund your retirement and your kids' education and everything else? So there's a whole bunch of stuff missing that the average person should start with, getting their cash flow under control. This is another thing that it doesn't get addressed. You know, the bank tells you how much you can afford based on their little criteria.
Mm-hmm.
However, they don't know what else you're doing with your credit cards and your spending after you qualify for that $80,000 truck or you buy the house. You know, they only qualify you based on what, if that's the only thing they're going to do is the mortgage.
Yeah.
And so this needs to be addressed as well. Like, where's our money going right now? Well, how many people stop and figure out where the bulk of their money goes? It's committed already. And if you looked at the average financial institution, their goal is to get you into a mortgage, a vehicle loan, a tax-free savings account, an RESP, RRSP, a checking account, a business account, a kids account.
All your insurance.
Stock trading
Yep,
account.
all of that.
All those
And
things.
so now they've got control of at least 7 different products, and your money is going into all of them. And now they have the money and they control a bunch of it. And you're looking at trying to do the best you can with what you have left. And that's always the problem, is quite often there's nothing left, or you're going to go for the last hurrah and gamble your money on something that you shouldn't be involved in because you really can't afford to lose it in the first place, and you don't have an emergency fund or a foundation set up. So this all ties together. It's all important, but there's an order of things as well that should be addressed. And I think a lot of people are jumping right from, they bought a house, they're having kids, and they're wanting to buy crypto as the big investment to get rich with. And you know, there's a lot more stability that should be in place prior to that. And like Anthony mentioned, you know, limit or restrict how much you're going to put into a particular area of investment based on what you can afford or afford to lose, because it could go to zero, or you could lose, obviously, 50% of what you put in fairly quickly, because that's how volatile it is.
Yeah.
Now, I look at the crypto in the same sort of light as gold. There is a limited supply. There's a limited amount of it. And the demand is the other thing that dictates. So supply or demand dictates the price on the particular product at any given time. So obviously, the higher the demand goes, the lower the price, or depending on the supply. Like if somebody's hanging on to their gold, they're not selling it, then where's the new people supposed to buy their gold from? There becomes a shortage, and there's a waiting list, you know, until somebody finally has financial challenges where they're forced to sell it. Different things happen in their family, estate settlements and whatnot, so there is money always coming up, or gold or silver coming up
And
for sale.
supply, obviously, coming from the mines is where a lot of it comes from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you go up and work in the mine there when you do service work up there. That gold is going to another country, right? So that gold isn't available for me to buy here. I'm not sure what they're using it for, but it's going to another country overseas, and so there is a limited supply of gold. I like gold because I can see it and store it. I don't see how crypto works in the same way, because you store it in a wallet or you store it someplace, but you can't really see it, and if you forget your password, you may never ever get at it again, like, because there's nobody else who knows how to get at your money. And so that makes me nervous, because how often have I forgot a password for some website or something that I use, and you can't retrieve it, and they won't help you retrieve it because
There's no middleman. It's just
There is
it's your
no
own
middleman.
account.
Yeah.
it's your own account and you're fully responsible. So that makes me a little nervous. If you had significant assets in there and all of a sudden something happened and you couldn't remember your passwords to get into it, that'd be pretty sad too. And then that means nobody else can get at it either. It's just kind of like it's locked away forever and unavailable to anybody.
Yeah, and with crypto, like Bitcoin, they say that there's a whole bunch of people who bought in at the beginning and then forgot their passwords, and now that, you know, $200 worth of Bitcoin is worth 400 million now, or something ridiculous, and it's just lost.
Well, and for some contrast, if you had gold sitting at your house or in a safety deposit box or anywhere on your person, whatever, it could get lost. You could drop it somewhere and it could get lost forever.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Or it could get stolen physically, which crypto's a lot harder to steal.
Mm-hmm.
But gold can also be used in electronics, in vehicles, in
Like it has a
tons
use.
and tons of uses for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's mostly what gives gold its value, is the limited quantity and its industrial use for how we use it.
Mm-hmm.
And that for the existence of time, gold has been the only form of real money, gold and silver, and that's been the only real form of limited quantity currency, true currency, money. That's the only form ever in existence, which gives a lot of people confidence in that I can't destroy this gold. No matter what I do, it's always going to be here. The same ounce of gold is here from millions of years ago. So that is a huge thing as well, right?
Well, there was a time back in the previous to 1971 where the gold was what backed our currency. It was the value that our currency was determined by, was the gold. There was gold backing it. So there wasn't an unlimited printing press cranking money out. And a lot of people don't understand that as the governments and the banks print more money, it's making the money that you have worth that much less. It's going to buy you that much less groceries. It's going to buy you, what you used to get for $1 now is going to take $1.50 for the same thing. Our incomes haven't gone up at all compared to what's called inflation, which is the value of our dollar being eroded. And then you've got taxes, and we've got a government in place now who's imposing more carbon taxes. It's not just for more energy efficient vehicles and for to encourage you to use less fuel. You have to think about it's going to get added to the cost of everything you buy. Your groceries. Well, why would that be? Well, because it takes a truck or a train or a plane to ship groceries up to Prince George. So guess what? That cost is going to get passed on to the consumer, the end user, no matter what it is. All of the costs along the way are going to get passed on to you and me, because at the end of the day, that's where it's all going. And the government doesn't seem to care. They think, we're going to make those people pay who are abusing, burning too much fuel. We don't have a lot of choices up here. It's -12 this morning. We got to warm up our cars while we're scraping the windows off. We got to ship stuff here. We have 4 highways and 4 rivers running in 2 directions and railways. We're the hub for the northern part of the province. There's a ton of stuff. The trucks on the road are incredible every day in every direction. There's trucks hauling stuff. And who are we going to teach a lesson here by increasing a carbon tax on all the truckers that are a necessity in this country? Or the rail cars? I mean, we don't have an alternative. We can't even drive an electric car from Vancouver to Prince George without overnighting someplace to charge it up. That's not practical for all of us that live in the north. So, just realize that somebody may be green friendly and environmentally friendly. The carbon tax is not the solution to fixing this. It's just adding to the cost of everything. We still have to do it. We still got to heat our houses. We still got to drive our cars. It's not we're going to drive less. We don't have a choice. It's just the way it is. And so you look at everything we do. The cost is increasing. The value of our dollar is decreasing. It's harder and harder and harder to get ahead. So it highlights the reason why we need to be a whole lot more concerned about cash flow, about debt management, about how we invest our money and who's got control of it, and try and regain control of some of the money that we're currently earning, and then put it to best use once we get that control back.
I'm not sure if we could do the calculation on how much money was created last year by the government and do the numbers so that we can see, based on how much was printed up until the beginning of the coronavirus or whatever, until now, how much was printed, and then how much inflation did we gain last year in the amount of currency that was created. That would be a huge number. Like out of $100, I bet you, we probably lost at least 10% of our purchasing power easily.
With how much money ended up going out, in subsidies to everybody and stuff. It was just a ridiculous amount of money. Well, where did that money come from?
The couple keystrokes. Some zeros. And
where did all that money come from? They created the money, or they borrowed the money from the central bank.
Well, think about. Go ahead.
I just want to touch on 2 things just to kind of highlight them. So.
And we should wrap up the crypto episode here, and then we can move on to a different topic too.
So back in 2008, when everything crashed and stock markets were at an all-time high and everything was going great, and then the housing market crashed and everything else, the price of gold went skyrocket by 2011 because however many ounces of gold were in existence out of the ground that we had, that divided by how much currency they had printed or they had created, that's those divided by each other is what gold rose to. The amount of ounces, the price for the amount of ounces it created rose to equal the amount of currency created. They haven't done a single thing different since then except print a shit ton more currency.
Yeah.
They haven't changed anything.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Why is there so much money, and why is the stock market at the all-time high and Bitcoin at an all-time high? Because they just gave out a crap ton more money to everybody. And so the people who didn't really need it and got it said, oh, I'm going to throw this in the stock market. I'm going to invest this.
Yeah.
Well, now you got this huge sum of money that just came into the stock market that was created out of thin air, that they gave to everybody, that most people put it into their houses, invested in something new like Bitcoin or gold or silver or whatever. Gold or silver is doing really well right now too.
Yeah.
But the next crash that's coming, the same thing's going to happen. And the amount of gold and silver that's out there now is going to be divided by how much currency is created, which is just absolutely astronomically high.
Yeah. And
the same thing's going to happen. People are going to rush back into a safe haven asset like gold or silver or Bitcoin, and that's why they're calling for $100,000 Bitcoin, $10,000 gold, $700 silver. That's why there's so many experts out there that have looked at the past and said, this is what happened. This is why it happened. Do the numbers, look at the things. Oh yeah, this is exactly what went on. Mm-hmm. And this is going to happen again. Let's put ourselves in a position where we could take advantage of that, because the wealth is never destroyed. It's only transferred. Mm-hmm. When everybody's having a really shitty day, somebody's having a freaking awesome day. And they're making a crap ton of money off of everybody who's choosing to sell at that point.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the value of gold really hasn't changed a whole lot, but the value of the dollar has depreciated so much that it takes that much more money, cash, to buy that same 1 ounce of gold than it did a year before.
It's not the value, it's the purchasing power.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 years ago, you could take an ounce of gold in and buy a full piece suit, full everything you need. Today, you go in, you buy the same suit, all you need is 1 ounce of gold. You get a full suit.
That's going back 2,000 years.
Oh, yeah.
To the days of
as
Jesus
far as you
walking
wanna know.
the earth. Yeah. You got a robe, pair of sandals, and a new belt for 1 ounce of gold. And
Mm-hmm.
today you can go get decked out with a nice new outfit, new shoes, new belt, and a new suit.
Yeah.
With the same ounce
There's
of gold.
nothing else that's
Armani
kept up
suit.
to inflation like gold has.
Yeah, I like gold, by the way.
Yeah, I noticed that. All right, so let's just final thoughts on crypto. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna do to do with crypto, and then you can kind of think about and discuss what you think you're gonna do with crypto. So what my position on crypto is that I'm going to make sure that I am in a position to be able to buy or use crypto at any point. So I'm not going to be putting a ton of money into crypto right now. That's not where I want to invest my money. I want to actually put my money into paying down my mortgage. I would much rather have a whole bunch of my wealth in there right now and not pay interest on it. Even though there is a potential of making a ton of money on buying a Bitcoin right now, because it might go up to $80,000 later by the end of the year. Who knows? But I am going to make sure that I am in a position to be able to buy and or use Bitcoin or another crypto if I need to. Because if for some reason things happen with world economy or a changing in currencies or something like that, I want to be able to buy stuff with that cryptocurrency to do the things that I want to do, to buy food, to pay for transportation, to do whatever.
So how are you going to do that?
How am I going to do that? Well, I'm just going to make sure that I've got my wallet set up properly. I've got my exchange set up properly, or they're registered on a few exchanges and things like that, so that I know that I can do that stuff. And I'll make sure that I've got a little bit of money into crypto right away. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what my general plan is. So I'm not putting a whole lot of eggs into that basket at all, but I'm going to be prepared. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I definitely want to get myself in the door, get my stuff set up. I want to get a little bit of Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever, just so that I have some and I'm in the game. And if something does happen, that at least I'm going to be gaining something. But obviously I'm going to be watching the graph, and when it finally peaks and comes down, as soon as it takes the turn to go back up, I'm going to buy something there. I'm going to start buying on all the low points.
All the dips, yeah.
And it's a buy and hold thing for me until I can start using it to spend. But also I want to figure out how I can set up my business as well to receive Bitcoin. Because if I can get paid in Bitcoin for certain jobs or from certain companies or people, then why not? That would be able to go right into my wallet, and I can gain that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be a smart idea, as I think a lot of the world is going to be transitioning over to something like that, and I want to know enough about it so that I can take advantage of it when it happens, or be in there before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another side of it that I'd like to look at, is having it set up for my company as well.
Being ready.
Well, one of the things that I thought about was, and then a question that I asked, would Bitcoin be a short-term investment or is it a longer-term perspective? And nowadays, at my age, I'm looking for short-term protection more so than long-term growth. So I suspect I'm probably going to sit on the sidelines and watch Anthony and Andrew set theirs up and see how it operates. I may set up an account myself, so I'm also prepared and ready to enter, and I'll rely on your guys' expertise and guidance and advice on what you do, rather than me spending my time trying to understand it and learn it better. I'll just follow someone who's skilled in its handling, because we can't know everything about everything, and that's not my area of passion. But a lot of people ask me as an advisor, well, what do you think about cryptocurrencies or bitcoins or these types of things? So I have to spend enough time to look at it to have an opinion, but it's probably not something I'm going to do on a daily basis. I never got into trading on the stock market, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and watch the ticker tape, and I didn't see the point in that. Life is, there's other more important things in my life that I want to be doing than watching and tracking the price of a stock that's being affected by media, affected by annual reports, affected by buying and selling, emotional behavior. Like, so much of that is out of my hands. It's like, well, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to play the game. I don't want to be spending my time doing that. So I've got a little bit longer perspective and wider, but more stable as well. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't be interested in participating with a small portion of my assets as well. Much as the advice that I give is, to diversify your sources into, I'm up to seven different places. We have real estate, we have, banking products. Ironically, isn't it funny that here we are in the lowest interest rate environment of our entire lifetimes? I think in one account that we have, we're getting 0.15%. It's like a daily interest account. And that's probably good compared to what others are getting. They're even getting less. So you're not getting any growth on your money, and the return is less than what the taxes would be. So it just highlights the importance of, well, where can we store our wealth in a tax-free environment? Because it's bad enough we got low returns and we want to go low risk because of our age and whatnot. We also have to look at, well, we're going to be losing money if we do nothing. If we don't get returns, and then they're going to tax that when we take it out and use it. We need to be aware of that, because we're losing money every day then. And so although it doesn't appear to be, seeing your money go down, what it's buying and what it provides is. And I think a lot of people just choose to ignore that, but that's our reality too. Go to the grocery store and see how much $200 buys you nowadays compared to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's way different, way less. You're getting a lot
Well,
less.
I could just go back 6 or 7 years ago, and if I went to A&W and bought 2 burgers, it would have cost me about like $12, $13. And I went there today and it cost me $23, just like that. So like, that's just an example from a fast food restaurant for 2 burgers and some fries.
Well, I told them to hold the bun too.
Right? Yeah, you got your lettuce wrap instead. So anyways, that kind of concludes our crypto episode for now, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, more in the future as well too, as things develop and as we go through things. But that's it for now, and we thank you for listening. If you like this episode, you're going to love our free online workshop that explains the concept and many others in more detail. The True Wealth Workshop will give you the tools to get out of debt quicker, get your finances in order the right way. Sign up for the free online workshop at mycustombank.com.